Now, for today's show. What do Alaskan fishing vessels and the US Navy's emergency ship salvage system, a Victorian freeway project, and a new movement to build a mentally healthy construction industry have in common? One man, Grant Fuller. Today on What Does It Feel Like Being You Today, I'm joined by Grant, who doesn't just do health and safety, he's lived it. During his amazing career, Grant has hauled nets in Alaska, worked on the US Navy's ESSM program, and led health and safety on major infrastructure projects here in Australia. He was also a driving force behind the integrated approach to wellness program on the Mordialloc Freeway project, a first-of-its-kind initiative that measurably reduced depression, stress and burnout across a major project workforce. Bringing it all together, Grant co-created Wellness in Infrastructure to kick things right up the path of much-needed health, safety and wellbeing change in the sector. Among all his stellar accomplishments, today I'll also be speaking gravely to Grant about his personal on-site experiences that no human should ever experience, and how it's everyone's responsibility to commit to making safer, healthier and happier workplaces. There's no excuses. Just be kind, just be caring, and don't be a beep. It can kill people. Anyway, enough of my blah blah and on with the show. Welcome, Grant Fuller.
Thank you, Rae. Great to be here. Looking forward to, having a chat with you.
Well, we've already had a chat because before we went on air, you disclosed so many things about you that I had no idea about, and I felt, wow, this is going to be such an amazing show, but I sense also quite an emotional one as well.
Yeah, there's, everyone in life has their adversities that mold them into the person they become, and I'm definitely not excluded from that category.
No, not at all. And nor are the many men in this world, with International Men's Day coming up on Wednesday the 19th of November. It's a great way to spend today's Sunday talking with someone whose work lifts the health and safety and wellbeing in infrastructure, and in doing that really changes things for the men and boys who make up so much of this sector, including you. But not to mention that, but also your amazing stories of how you got here. You have 2 boys of your own, don't you?
I do. 5 and almost 2. Bodie and Rowie.
Bodie and Rory. I've got a son called Rory, so even saying that was really hard. With International Men's Day in mind, raising 2 boys who are in their infancy at the moment, what sort of a world do you hope for them?
Definitely a world where they can share feelings and can be able to, really talk about mental health and struggles and how it can cause them to do and be in different states of stress and anxiety and such. I grew up in a world where you definitely didn't talk about it. I didn't see a lot of the men around me ever show emotion, and I want them to be able to show emotion. And it's funny, later in life now, I show it a lot more. And my son's seen me with tears in my eyes after listening to a song that brings me to tears, and same things with, watching a show that does it as well. It's important to get that out, to get those feelings out, and to not box them up and let them boil over. So I want them to be able to, be in a world where they can show their emotions without guilt or, feeling that they shouldn't.
Well, you mentioned a world that you grew up in. Can you describe that? So, as you can probably tell from the accent out there, I grew up in the U.S., northern U.S., up in Montana, in a very small town by the name of Big Timber. So there's about 1,200 people in Big Timber, and I was about 30 minutes outside. Grew up on a ranch. So very rural America, quite old school in mentality. And also now looking back, while there's very beautiful parts to where I grew up, small towns are difficult places to grow up if you don't have the right name or the right stature. It's all about how big
your ranch is and how fancy and flash your trucks are. And
so were you not Yellowstone?
I was not Yellowstone.
Okay.
No, unfortunately not. But envied those people back then for sure. Yeah, it seemed like they had it all.
So was Yellowstone, the series, quite a good example of real life in Montana?
Some of the aspects of the show are pretty true. For example, if not all, the majority of the people I grew up with, we were the first generation not to be inheriting our family's ranches. So I'm fourth generation Montanan. My family grew up in the same area, same county that I grew up in. As where my family homesteaded, and we no longer own a ranch, and same thing goes for all of my close friends. We're the first generation that did not get to inherit our family's ranches.
Wow. So how did that inform your growth and development?
Oh, it really took away my future plans. That was the fallback plan, is I would just stay and keep ranching and farming, and that would just be life. But when that was taken away, I had to figure out what I was going to do with life. And the only other thing to do, if you're from my hometown, is work at the mine. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my years working underground in a mine. So it was...
How was it taken away?
Because of the property tax and land prices skyrocketed once Montana was found to be this, diamond in the rough. Our place was bought by a plastic surgeon from California, who eventually bought our place. Next door was the man that invented Jinko jeans, those really baggy jeans. And then, Mel Gibson wasn't far away from us as well, and a few big oil moguls and barons. And it just made it so you weren't able to actually make a profit. And then price of diesel, price of cattle went down, and it sent a lot of ranches, small family ranches, out of business if you didn't run large quantities of cattle or sheep. You just didn't stand a chance.
So in your family, can you describe what your family was like?
Yeah, so I lost my dad when I was 5. I'm the youngest of 5. Mom remarried when I was 8 to my stepdad, who was a rancher as well. So moved out to his place. A lot of work. Yeah, a lot of work as a kid, but it instilled definitely a good work ethic in me.
What was it like growing up without your dad?
Yeah, tough. Yeah, it was tough. My stepdad was born and bred. He was one of 12 that was just born and bred to work. He didn't know and didn't understand dynamics of what I believe a real family should look like. There wasn't a lot of love in his family, so there wasn't a lot of love from him. We viewed him more as our boss than any sort of father figure. Never came to baseball games, football games. So there was always something missing for sure. My mom tried her best to make up for it. But yeah, there was always that piece missing, that I wish I had a dad to play catch with me. I wish I had a dad to take me fishing. And it was something that really molded me, because not having a dad, but having these stories of who my dad was, which unfortunately there was some stories that aren't so great about who he was, but there was a few aspects of him that I really held on to. One, that he did 2 tours of Vietnam. Another, that he really enjoyed skiing and also, skydiving. So I made up this adventurer, this bigger than life person of who my dad was. And it really shaped me, in the risks that I would take later in life, leaving home and really not looking back. I was chasing this person that I had created in my head was my father. So in a way, it really molded me.
I was going to ask you then, with the kind of stepfather you had in the absence of your biological dad, who were your male role models? But it sounds like your dad kind of, even though he wasn't physically there, did create some role modeling for you. Yeah,
big time. And then I really didn't have a lot. I would always, if I'd have a good baseball coach or a teacher, a male teacher that I really liked, I would really like hold on to them, because it was like filling that void. But my family was primarily dominated by, my grandmother. Both my grandfathers were gone early on. I don't remember really either one. So it was the women in my family that really had a large influence on me. And that was my grandma and my great aunt. They were, absolute miracles for me as a kid.
Yeah. So what was it like? You mentioned before that you had a couple of sisters and a brother who were older than you. So what was getting through school like? Did you have friends that you built healthy relationships with?
Yes, yeah. I had one very, very close friend until I was in about grade 6, and then he moved away, unfortunately. So then I was kind of friendless there for a bit, and then I found if I was the funny guy in class that I could make a lot more friends. So I started being the funny guy, and next thing I know, I was able to have quite a good friend network. Being the youngest of the 5, I wasn't very close to my siblings, especially my 3 older sisters. My brother is 2 years older than me, and we were quite close, even though we fought like cats and dogs most of the time. We still had each other's back because of, experiencing the loss of my father. Kind of joined us in a what I believed was a bit deeper of a connection. Yeah.
Well, I know because I have researched your story that at quite a young age you nicked off to Alaska to work on fishing boats. What made that happen?
I was pretty lost once I hit high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I was going to go, and that was during the time of kind of losing the family ranch. And so another large issue that was happening in my small town, and isn't too different to what's happening now in Australia, was the ice epidemic. So that was hitting very hard in the early 2000s, and unfortunately it didn't miss my hometown of Big Timber. And myself and quite a few of my friends unfortunately found ourselves going down that road. And I knew that if I stayed in my hometown, that with nothing there for me, that there was a high likelihood that I would be staying and finding myself, on ice. So I decided. Did
you actually find yourself?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What was that experience like for you, in retrospect?
There was, my friend group we had a lot of loss. We lost a very close friend in a drunk driving accident when I was probably 9th grade. And then the year after that, we lost one of our very close friends. Reminding again, it's a very small town. I mean, we've grown up with each other. We know each other's cats and dogs' names and parents and everything. Town of 1,200. We had a friend commit suicide, and we had no real outlet to go to, no people to really speak with. We didn't trust, a lot of the people, because it is a small town. You can't really trust anyone with information. So we bottled it up, and we didn't know how to talk about it and how to get beyond it. And we, found ourselves instead trying to escape it using drugs. And, during the time, it just felt normal, which is scary to say, but that's how bad it was. It was just everywhere. So instead of going to a party and having some beers like you would see, it was going to a party and smoking meth. And I'd already watched it ruin my older brother. At that time, I don't even know if we knew exactly where he was. And so I didn't want to go down the same road. I had to get out of there. I just had to leave. And though it was leaving everything I knew and everyone I knew, I knew that it was the best possible choice for me to do.
How did you know that you needed to survive a different life?
I wanted more. I think it was, creating that figure of who I thought my dad was and wanted my dad to be. I wanted to go on that adventure. I wanted to see if I could do it. I just wanted to go and see if I could get to the edge of the world and come back.
Well, we're going to get into a bit more detail in the next segment, but tell me, what was the thing that inspired you to go to Alaska of all places? Because it's a big world.
Well, my dad, I was told my dad always had a dream of moving to Alaska, and my mom and my dad almost did at one point, but he never made it. So that was part of the driver. And another one was I watched a show on TV. It was called like The Last Cowboys, and it was about longlining in Alaska. And I think I was probably early in my last year of school when I saw that show, and I decided that's what I was going to do. Somehow, some way, I didn't know where I was going to get the money, but I was going to get to Alaska, and I was going to go on a fishing boat.
Have you ever watched that show again? Digged it out of the archives?
I need to. I haven't, and I really need to, because, yeah, it had a very large impression on me.
Well, that's it. I mean, what changes the course of our lives? And it was funny, I was speaking to my son yesterday, George. He lives in London, and he's been there for 2 years, and he's got another year left, but he's a chef, so they've actually changed the visa, the visa laws over there now, so chefs are no longer deemed as a skilled worker, so his visa won't get renewed, and even with his employer, it's very, very difficult to make this happen. So he doesn't know what's happening next to him in life. He knows he's probably not going to live in Australia, and we were just sort of talking about how I wonder what the next path is going to be, given that the world's a big place and he's going to choose his next destination. And it's partly scary for him and for me as his mum, but also really, really exciting that when you have a vision for yourself that you want to do better and you want to live and you want to live an adventurous, curious and purposeful life, these doors just open.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest. That when the doors open, you jump through them. And I've done that a few times in my life, and that's why I'm sitting right here talking to you, is a very small crack in the door opened to come to Australia to work, and I jumped through it as fast as I could.
Well, you hold that thought, because we have to save something for the rest of the show without wanting to cut you off. But speaking about cracks in doors and pathways and opportunities, I remember it was about maybe 9 years ago, I was sitting at my desk at an organisation I was working with at the time, and one of my colleagues came over and said, "There's a man you have to meet." I just met him, and I think he's right up your alley, all about men's health, and his name's Travis Strong. And okay, so I met Travis Strong, and from there, Travis and I have, over those many years, done so much work in men's health. Travis then had a charity called White Owl for Men's Health, which was legacy to two of his friends who passed away from cancer and from suicide. So every year we had a big charity event where we would donate our money to the Australian Prostate Cancer Clinic, and it was an amazing space of learning and discovery. And with Travis at the helm, Travis can make anything happen. So fast forward, earlier this year, or it was actually a few months ago, Travis said, "Oh, would you like to come to a black tie ball?" I went, "Oh, yeah, maybe." Any chance to wear a frock? And he said it's about wellness in infrastructure, right up your alley for the work that I do in construction, which is where I met you.
That's right. Yeah, I was very excited when I heard that that you were going to come along, because it was a huge milestone for us. It was something that we had been discussing and dreaming about for 4 or 5 years.
What, me coming along to an event?
Yes. That in the event itself, to celebrate the projects and the organizations with industry that are really trying to move the dial and trying to do things differently.
Just give us a little thumbnail sketch of wellness in infrastructure.
Wellness in infrastructure was, I guess, originated out of a 2018 study on the industry, which showed burnout at a rate of almost 50% amongst construction professionals, and stress, anxiety, depression levels about 4 to 5 times higher than that of the average population, due to a variety of reasons and, complex reasons within industry. But it was really to start looking at how we could change those statistics, because people were hurting. We know that the suicide rate is extraordinarily high in our industry, and a few of us felt enough wasn't being done, and that more advocacy, awareness needed to be taken. and that more not only organizations with industry, but also client organizations, so government, needed to start working together to look at how they could set these projects up for success when it came to mental health and well-being, which, would hopefully not only look after the people on those projects, but also look after the projects themselves. Because if you have happy people delivering your projects, they're probably going to be more productive people. And
safer as well.
That's right.
And perhaps our infrastructure will be more sturdy too. No cracks, no Westgate Bridge collapse.
Thankfully, I believe we've learned the lessons from that.
Yeah. But we will talk a little bit more in detail of how you set up wellness in infrastructure, because you must be in about your 7th year, is that right?
Yes. Yep.
And how that accumulated to the ball that I went to, which was the inaugural awards, which was awarding people for their work. And because I didn't know a lot about the organisation, I was pretty impressed by the calibre and mix of industry people that were in the room who were just so enthusiastic, not about having been awarded for work that they're doing, but to be part of something that they really cared about.
Yeah, it's created some of the strongest bonds that I've had in life through that shared goal of trying to create a better industry. It's amazing when you see senior leaders that do commit to it and put their weight behind it and their influence behind it. We've been able to accomplish some great things with that. And if we can continue to get those leaders behind us, we're going to continue to hopefully create a larger change within industry.
I just get every day, I get goosebumps literally just looking at how workplaces in Australia have moved the dial from, back in 2014 when I was working with Beyond Blue on their first research project for around mentally healthy workplaces with Price Waterhouse at the time. And that return on investment study, which turned into Heads Up, which was the first online program for workplaces, part of that engagement team for me was going out to workplaces all across Australia to influence that. And it was so difficult to get people to believe that it was a thing. And where I look at where we are now and being in the room that night with you guys, to hear everybody just talking about this like it's now just a normal part of workplaces, that we're addressing how people are feeling and recognizing, like you said before, happy people produce really good work. And I think that's the inspiring bit, is if we're here now, gosh knows where we're going to be in the next 10 years.
Yeah, it is nice to think about. I did when we first started wellness. I thought it was going to change a lot quicker than it has. It's definitely made me more resilient, and more patient as well, because I'm not the most patient of people. But just looking back and seeing some of the milestones and hearing some of the stories of change, it definitely gives me a lot of, I guess, appetite for what's to come in the future.
Can you give any insight into what is actually coming in the future?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more focus on leadership and ensuring that the leaders on these various projects and various organizations are really taking the time and putting the effort into creating the right behaviors, the right framework to look after people. One of the most difficult things about large infrastructure projects is once you're awarded that project, say the government says, yep, you've got it, contractor A, it's go. Get mobilized, get the equipment on site, start getting everything ready for what's to come. And you don't slow down to say, wait, how are we going to come together as a team? How are we going to set up the right framework to support our people, to support these young engineers that just got out of school? Or you never take that time. And imagine doing that with a sporting team. Just pulling together a random team of 40 people and saying, yep, go play the game, go get it done. How well would that team go?
Yeah.
So it's about
analogy.
Just taking a little bit of time at the start to get the right behaviors, to ensure that everyone knows, I guess, the way of working within that project or organization before you get out and get into it. And I'm not saying that's weeks. It's a few days.
But it doesn't stop there though, does it? I mean, it has to be a philosophy around this continuous approach to how human beings are. So most human beings don't like uncertainty. So create certainty. You know, most human beings don't like not knowing what they're turning up for. Make that clear. They're very, very simple things to do all along the way, because as you know, in infrastructure, it's constantly changing. You know, a project isn't set out on day one and it moves logically through until the end. There's a lot of changes. So we have to be able to, that's what change management is, I guess. But I think that's just a word rather than an application.
Absolutely. It's being intentional about it, isn't it? An intentional culture, or an intentional way of working and keeping that front of mind is absolutely critical, because when things get tough is when it gets thrown out the window if it isn't kept at the front of mind. And
that's people out the window, actually.
Absolutely.
Now, on that, let's move to something lighter, shall we? It's that time in the show, Grant, where I've clumsily coined it the very special guest song request. Anyway, it's a moment's break where I have a bit of fun queuing a song from your selection, and you have to guess from my cryptic clue which one it is. So the clue could be the song title, the artist name, or any other loose thread that I have found to come up with something. Does that make sense?
Yep. Got it.
Are you ready? Here's your clue. A cat gives advice.
A cat gives advice. Well, it's got to be Father and Son by Cat Stevens.
You got it. Good clue. I think I might know what this song means for you.
Yeah. It just tells the tale of the father and son, and for me, it, I guess, is, a bit of thinking back on the times growing up.
Are you going to cry?
Not to this one.
Not
there
to
may
this
be
one
in the queue, if you play it or not, that does get the feelings going.
Now, when we come back, we will wind back the clock a bit again, back to where it started, find out a little bit more what happened on these bloody fishing boats in Alaska, because I can hear everybody wants to know. And, you know, young Grant growing into where you are today. So you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. Do not go away. Oh, welcome back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. You're listening to Rae Bonney on What Does It Feel Like Being You Today? With me is Grant Fuller, who's not only co-founded Wellness in Infrastructure, but has become a real champion for mentally healthier and safer workplaces across infrastructure and construction sector. That was a bit of a mouthful, wasn't it?
It always is, yeah.
That break came up really quickly. As always, in the breaks, we get into this very deep conversation about other things we're going to talk about on the show, and I forget that the song's coming to an end so abruptly. So we talked at the end of the last segment about now segueing into Alaska, and what was that like? Like, did you literally pack your bag, take a little bit of money and get on a flight to nowhere?
Yeah. So when you graduate in the States, I don't know if it's the same here, but you get graduation presents, and a lot of times it's graduation money. So I think all up with graduating, I had about $900 cash that I had been given. So the day after I graduated, I got a one-way plane ticket from Billings, Montana to Anchorage, Alaska, and flew to Anchorage, and then worked my way out of Anchorage by hitchhiking down to Valdez, Alaska, and walked around the docks until I found myself a job on a fishing boat. Was
hitchhiking okay for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Back then it was.
No terrible stories?
No. Now I don't think I'd probably be too keen on doing it.
So when did you how did you find a boat?
You just walk around the docks and talk to the different boats, and then they go, I think, the Ariel's looking for a deckhand, and you jump on, and then it's time to prove yourself. The only thing that I hadn't thought about because I hadn't really seen the ocean until that point, was the fact that I might get seasick. So one of the other deckhands said, "Hey, you don't get seasick, do you?" "Oh, I don't know, actually." And so I thought my whole plan could be foiled at that point, because I didn't know if I got seasick or not. Thankfully,
Wow.
I didn't.
Really? So what was boat life like?
Oh, a new place every day. I mean, you'd wake up and crawl out of your bunk and crawl upstairs and be looking at, when I was out of Valdez, so that was salmon seining. So on a boat with really big net. It was beautiful. You're in Prince William Sound, so just massive, massive snow-capped mountains around you and glaciers and every bit of wildlife you could possibly want to see. Orcas, dolphins, bears. It was gorgeous. I just loved it. I loved not knowing where I'd be waking up the next day. And I also loved that when you would leave port, you could be out for up to a month and a half. And there was no newspapers out there. There was no cell reception. And you were just literally discommunicated from everything.
And not setting foot on land.
Once in a while, if they shut, the fishery for an afternoon or something like that, you'd take one of the skiffs and go to the beach and go hiking. And that was a lot of fun. You'd catch up with a lot of the deckhands off the other boats, and sometimes it'd end up being a pretty wild party on the beach. But yeah, you'd hike in just the most remote places. So some great memories there. On some of the other boats I worked on, it was over a month, not seeing land, not touching land. That would get long. Yeah.
But you've literally just completely changed every piece of your life with total strangers. What was the mateship like?
Yeah, look, you were there for a job, so there was a limit of, a degree of respect that you had with your co-mates and then with your captain, obviously. I was fortunate. I think it was second season. When I was on a long liner, so change of boat and change of fishery. I made some good friends that season that remained good friends for quite some time afterwards. And even in the first season, I've got a couple friends still to this day that were deckhands on other boats that we're still very close. And it's been incredible watching what directions all of our lives have taken. None of us are obviously still fishing, but all of us had a bit of that adventurous and spirit in us, and it's taken them to some faraway places and heights in life, and I felt it's done the same for me.
Yeah, was it hard on your body, like hauling salmon?
Look, it was. You would go to bed at night and your hands would just tingle and ache, and they'd keep falling asleep. And the other part was the jellyfish, that I was not prepared for the jellyfish that would come up either on the net or long line and come up on the ground line, and it'd get you in the eye, it'd get in your mouth, it'd get in your ears, and it used to hurt so bad. And I remember thinking, I'm going to quit fishing because of jellyfish. But thankfully, you start to build up a degree of tolerance with them. But there'd be these ones that are dark red, almost like a burgundy. And when they would slap you in the face, good Lord, it would hurt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I mean, you didn't think of seasickness or jellyfish.
No. Thankfully, neither one got me to quit, but I'd say the jellyfish probably got me pretty close at one point.
Well, it looks like, you're out in the big world now, and the adventures sound just amazing. Do you think for your manhood and your development that this was just such a perfect segue from what you'd known being in high school and perhaps dabbling in things that weren't going to lead you down a good path, like your brother? Yeah,
most definitely. I mean, growing up in a small town, you're very isolated from things. You're almost incubated, in what you believe the world is going to be and how it's going to be. And unfortunately, you listen to what others believe it will be for you. Not having the right last name and not having what people believe you should have. And so they already in my hometown had kind of cast me aside and thought, well, he's not going to end up to be much. And so going to Alaska was really going to prove them all wrong. The local little diner in my hometown, the Frosty Freeze, which unfortunately no longer exists, they actually had bets on how long I would last. And unfortunately, my stepdad made his bet was only 2 weeks. So 6 years later, I proved him wrong. But, they all had bets. So I had to prove that wrong for sure, and make sure that nobody got paid out on those bets. And, then I found that I really loved it and really enjoyed the work. And also it allowed me to take most of the winter off and go ski instructing, which is one of my biggest loves in life is skiing.
Well, you mentioned that was something that you knew about your dad as well, skiing.
That's right.
Do you think that's an inherent thing or something that you...
It was inherent in the fact that I was like, oh, my dad was a skier, so I'm going to be a skier, even though my family couldn't afford for me to be a skier. So I wasn't a skier until, midway through high school, when I could finally get, a job legally and be able to pay for myself to go skiing. Yeah. But I immediately fell in love with it because it's in the mountains, and I loved the adrenaline and everything else associated with it. And would feel, honestly, whenever I was in the mountains, I mean, that's where my dad spent the majority of his time in life. So I'd always feel close to him in mountains. So I think there was definitely a large piece there.
Yeah. So this idyllic world of adventure and just, perfect balance, why did you change that?
Well, I wouldn't say it was perfect balance.
That's why you're painting it.
Fishing boats, look, there's a lot to enjoy about them, and there's a lot not to enjoy, unfortunately.
I guess romance wasn't huge on the agenda.
You would, not a lot of romance, and unfortunately, a lot of people that either find themselves, working on boats or, I don't know what exactly happens, but there is quite a large, population of those I worked with that unfortunately suffered with different addiction tendencies, and so you saw a lot of that still. Fortunately, I kept a pretty good degree away from it, knowing that it would be very easy for me to slip into addiction. So I kept a good arm's length away. But you saw a lot of that. You saw a lot of addiction. You saw a lot of divorce as well. So, I made it deck boss, which next, after deck boss, is starting to work into a captain seat. And what I started realizing is that if I chose that life, that I wouldn't be a family man or a good family man. May have a family, but I would be away from them, more than half, if not 3/4 of the year. And so I made a real conscious decision that I needed to change and shift what I was going to do in life.
How old were you at this stage, Grant?
I would have been, 24, I think? Yeah, about around 24.
How did you know you wanted a family then?
Growing up, I always wanted a family. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to have kids and, I guess vicariously live through my fatherhood of being the dad that I wish I had. So I always had that drive that I was going to be a dad and I was going to be a damn good dad. And I did have a girlfriend at that point that was, I think we'd been together like 5 years.
When you were on the boat?
Well, she was in Valdez. You see, I was on the boat and she was in Valdez, and then moved to Anchorage, and we had an apartment in Anchorage together that I would very rarely be at, because I'd either be on the boats or I'd be skiing. No surprise, it didn't work out. She'd warned me a couple times if I went back fishing again that she wouldn't be there when I came back. And sure enough, I did that, I think, twice to her. And when I came back the second time, it was done. Mm-hmm. But that was the time when I came back that I decided I was going to find something else to do, which, ended up being, a role as a civilian contractor with the Navy. Mm. So,
how did you find that because it probably wasn't on LinkedIn or? It
was in the newspaper. It was in the back of the newspaper in Valdez. It was a really bad salmon season, and the captain, I couldn't stand the captain I was working for. And I just had enough at that point. And I was reading the paper and looking in the back at the help wanted ads. And sure enough, there was this role with the Navy, for a rigger. And I was like, oh, what's a rigger? And I looked up what a rigger was, and it had about splicing and being able to operate marine cranes. And I said, well, I operate cranes on the boat, and I know how to splice. So my interview was midway between Valdez and Anchorage, which is about a 6-hour drive. We met literally in the middle, just in a random pullout on the highway. And these two guys, the base manager and the vice base manager, talked to me for about an hour and then made me splice in front of them. And then they said, you got the job.
What is splicing?
Splicing is when you take two ropes and you can splice them together to make one. Yeah.
Can you show me later how to do that?
Yeah,
That'd be really handy.
Yeah. But I don't have a FID anymore. A FID is a very important tool to be able to splice. But, yeah, that was my interview, was being able to splice. Yeah.
So, cause it's a pretty big leap, isn't it, from where you were to the next role?
Yeah, it was. It was my first salary. Cause, growing up, I predominantly worked on the family's ranch and then the neighbor's ranch. So it was my first role that was an actual role, I guess. Yeah. Being on a salary and that sort of thing and benefits. And I thought I hit the jackpot. And I remember feeling that, being like, I can't believe I got this job. Yeah. And, one of the first things they said after I started is they go, oh, did anyone tell you you're not just going to be the rigger? I was like, well, what else am I going to be? And they said, you're going to be the safety manager. And I laughed. I was like, do you know where I just came from? Safety? That's not a thing. I was like, that's just a soft thing that people use all the time. Safety. I'm not going to do that role. And they're like, you are going to do that role because the person that was here before you, he did that role. And so now it's your role. And they sent me off to a safety course. It was like a 5-day intro course that OSHA used to do, or probably still does. And it was the first day, and the facilitator said, I want you to think back on an incident or an accident that's occurred in the workplace that you worked in that could have been prevented. And I sat there thinking, and I unfortunately saw some pretty horrific incidents happen on the boats. I lost a few friends on the boats. The Ocean Challenger, when it went down, I lost about three friends when that went down. And
what do you mean? It sank?
It sank. Yeah.
Well, you just said that so casually. That sounds really frightening.
Yeah, considering that I was going to be on that boat, and then last minute I made a change and decided that I was going to go home instead because I'd been fishing for about 9 months straight at that point. And I had a really hard time letting the captain down and telling him that I wasn't going to be going on the trip with him because I needed to go home. And about a week after being home, another friend sent me a news link, and it was a link about the Ocean Challenger going down.
Wow.
Yeah. But I thought back to an incident where I saw the deck boss of the boat I was working on get hit by a block that came out of the rigging due to maintenance, what was it? So it was due to the captain and the owner of the boat not putting money back into the boat. So the maintenance on the boat at that point was terrible. Everything was rusted. Everything was really lagging, and it ripped this block out of the rigging, which hit straight into his head. And he's got the capacity of about a 12-year-old for the rest of his life. He had a traumatic brain injury, and I thought back to that incident sitting in the safety course when, think about an incident that occurred and how it could have been prevented. I just put it all together and went, well, it's preventative maintenance. The guy that was injured by the block had been screaming at the captain only days before about how he was selfish and not putting money back into the boat that he should have been. And then he got hit by the block, and it really had a big impact on me thinking about it that way and going, wow, that absolutely could have been prevented. When it happened, I just thought it was luck. I was like, oh, he was in a bad spot. He shouldn't have been standing there. That could have been me. Geez, I'm lucky. That was luck. It wasn't luck. It should have been prevented. And it was the captain taking more money than he should have and not putting it back into preventative maintenance on the boat. So that was a huge, huge moment in my life that I said, whoa, this safety stuff actually has a big point to it.
So was that your moment in time where you go, that's where I want to head?
That was the start. And then when I found out about the psychology behind safety and started looking at, back then it was the DuPont Bradley curve. When I saw that, I was, whoa, this is insane. How you could, create these influence these behaviors. And I've always really liked psychology and been fascinated by it. And once I learned that plays a very large aspect in health and safety, I was hooked. And then they couldn't get me to stop being a safety manager and go back to rigging. I just wanted to do the safety, which it was a great environment to be in. Working for the Navy, the base manager became a really big mentor for me and influence for me. And he was when I decided 2 years later that I was going to move to Australia, he was very, very supportive and said, if it doesn't go well down there, you always have a job here. So that gave me a lot of confidence that, I could take the risk and be okay.
Wow. So what was the crack in the door that opened to Australia?
Skiing. I was skiing with an Australian guy that we became pretty good mates. And when he was leaving Alaska to come back to Australia after his ski holiday, he said, if you ever want to come down to Australia, just let me know and I'll bring you down. You can work for me. And I remember that, it's one of those conversations like, yeah, okay, sure. That's never going to happen, but sure. But he left me his card and I followed him up and said, I'm actually keen. So at that point, I think I'd been in Alaska for almost 9 years. I got out of that relationship and I wanted to go on the next adventure. I wanted to see if, I could continue to push that limit. And I thought I'd only come down, maybe 12 months, 2 years at the most and go back to Alaska. And so I emailed him and said, look, I'll take you up on the offer. And sure enough, his EA, he emailed me back with all the information to complete for my visa, and they booked my plane tickets. And about a month and a half later, I was on a flight to Australia.
With a job? With
a job as a junior safety advisor in the Bowen Basin up in Queensland in the coal mines. I had no idea about anything about coal mining, nor did I have any idea about any of the legislation in Australia, let alone the legislation around the Coal Mining Health and Safety Act up in Queensland, which is one of the most in-depth and harsh acts in the world. I mean, it's massive piece of legislation that I was coming to work with, and it was quite a learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, welcome to Australia, the most compliant country in the world.
Yeah. I wasn't ready for the blowflies. I thought the jellyfish was bad, but the flies in the Bowen Basin.
Was there any time in all of this that you realized just how adaptable and resilient you are?
I don't think it's been until, later. I've been, that was 2012. So been in Australia now, for quite some time. And now I've started to kind of get to a point where I've looked back. I flew down here with, again, I think it was around $900 in my
magic
pocket.
Number.
I had a really bad fishing season, the last season, and then the Navy, I didn't make a whole lot of money, and I had some debts to pay so that I could, leave the States without going back to having massive debt. So I paid off the debts that I had and then left me with about $900 cash. And, first place I went to eat was, what's that? The burger joint. It's everywhere. The
McDonald's?
No. It's
Burger King.
No, they've got the sweet potato fries in that.
I don't frequent any of those places.
I'm sure most of the listeners know which place I'm talking about. Yeah. But went to it's not a fast food. Went there and I think I got a burger and a beer and it was $25. And I immediately went, I do not have enough money, because at that point it was $1.10 Australian to the US dollar, and everything was so expensive. It was a very long month until I got that first paycheck.
Yeah, it is. Wow, but what was
grilled? There it is.
Oh, grilled. Gosh, yes. I don't probably associate. I mean, I don't think I've ever eaten grilled in my entire life. So I think I disassociate that with chicken, not burgers.
Oh, well, there you go. I love that we just did a promotion for them. It's not a place I would frequent either. Yeah.
So how long did you spend up there?
I was with that company for a bit over 2 years, through quite hard times, to be honest. I came down right when the coal price was peaking, so a lot of people probably remember there was a massive boom around 2010 in coal mining. And this company had grown from being about 20 people to about 450. And when I came, it was August 2012. And about 2 weeks after I started, they made their first round of redundancies. They made about 50 people redundant. And I was like, great. I just literally lifted my whole life and moved to Australia, and I'm probably going to be made redundant. So I just realized that the people they were making redundant were the ones that would only do the job they were sought to do. So, I only do geology, or I only do mine maintenance, or whatever it might be. So I decided, well, I could do it all. So I went back to my roots, and I was running equipment, operating equipment again. And I just made sure that if there was something that they needed done, I could be the person to do it. And so went from a company of 450 down to when I left, I think we were down to about 40 people. We'd been acquired by an American company actually at that point. And so I was looking for the next thing after that, and I'd met a girl who would eventually become the love of my life, and who I'm married to today with my two boys. And
so you met her up there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I met her about 6 months after being down here.
What's her name?
Laura.
Is Laura listening in today?
Yeah. Yep, she is. Hey, Laurie.
Say, I love you, Laura.
Do. Love her very much, and hello, boys.
Oh, did I meet her at the ball?
You didn't, unfortunately. Oh. Yeah, you didn't. She'll be at the next one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess having two young ones, it's hard to leave, not hard to leave them because you don't have anyone to look after them, but my experience of raising children, and now I have a grandchild, it's like you just want to be with them, and if...
You do. You absolutely do. But once in a while, it would be nice to be able to go out on a date night. One thing we really didn't prepare ourselves for, and I don't think you necessarily acknowledge it until you're in it, is not having a family network around us. So her family's all in Queensland, and obviously mine's overseas. And geez, I sure get jealous by the people that have, the mother-in-law or the mom living two doors over.
I think I am the best. I'm a rah-rah, not a grandma, but I think I'm probably the best one because I'm there all the time. You know?
That'd be amazing.
It's but I understand that. In fact, my daughter came on the show a few months ago, and we talked about this exactly, that the difference between having that, not just support, but that love and that care, that somebody loves your child as much as you do, who's around the corner.
Absolutely.
So did you then move to Melbourne?
I moved to Melbourne in 2016. So when I left from the mining, which was really mining infrastructure, so I was already in infrastructure at that point, but when I moved out of that role, it was with an organization that was predominantly road and rail infrastructure.
Okay, so now you're in the really big project stuff down here.
Yeah, starting to get into that bigger projects. I was really overseeing more in a national role at that point, not so much project side. But the move to Queensland is when I started looking after more the specific projects, and then eventually would go and start managing and working on the project, which I really enjoyed. Quite different than managing kind of in a regional capacity, but also really rewarding. I mean, it's incredible when you finish a project and see it, give back to the community and
So this is also at a time where, like I described before, now we were talking about mentally healthy workplaces. And going back to my work that I was very fortunate to do with Beyond Blue at the time, that return on investment study really, really highlighted that construction and infrastructure was a place to be really paying a lot of attention to, given, mostly male workspaces and, still to this day, 96% of workplace deaths are men, and that doesn't even account for the suicide. So at what stage did you start realizing that a mentally healthy workplace was is the same as a physically safe workplace?
Well, it's funny. I've often said that I actually did health and safety a discredit for many years because I was really only focused on the safety aspect. which was, the critical risk, making sure that when you're doing the complex lifts with the cranes or working with plant and equipment and people in plant and equipment, that those are mitigated and managed. I didn't focus a whole lot, even though I said earlier I love psychology. I didn't focus a whole lot on the psychology and the psyche of people on these jobs until 2018, when that data came out from Swinburne University, and specifically Professor Luke Downey.
Can I just intersect? Is that the word? I don't think that was
interject?
The word. Interject. That was the word I was looking for. Had you had any experience yourself through all this time, through the boats, through the Navy, through Queensland, where you actually felt your mental health was compromised in a workplace?
No. To be honest, to be completely honest, I thought that would have showed weakness to grow up the way that I did, and it's hard for me to even say that now. But no, I always felt that I was very resilient very resolved in my mental capacity, and that I could take on anything, because I'd been through what I'd been through in my life, so it wouldn't affect me, type of mentality. So no, at that point, I felt that there was no chance I'd be impacted.
So there was nothing that came up for you that you just pushed it down and pushed it aside, but recognized that you weren't being treated well, or something was affecting your physical and mental well-being?
Not until a very particular project and it was after the project where I realized that I was significantly impacted by what had occurred on that project and what I had been through. When I was in it, it was a fight, right? It was about making sure that they didn't win, and they being the CFMEU and the behaviors that they brought onto the job and the bullying. I wanted to make sure that we fought back against that, and we didn't allow the bullying, the aggression, the harassment to happen on our job, which was all due to that particular job having an agreement with a different union. And so the CFMU was very unhappy that we didn't, that we went and made an agreement with a union that wasn't them. And so they were going to make us pay. And that looked, I guess escalated in a lot of different ways, with them coming on site and trying to stop the job for what they claim to be different safety issues and concerns that were fabricated and proven to be fabricated when WorkSafe would come to site in response to the accusations that would be made and find there was nothing there. We weren't shut down by WorkSafe. We weren't given improvement notices. It was literally WorkSafe would go, yeah, this is a non-issue.
But still disrupted.
Absolutely. And called every single name under the sun for hours on end. Told you're a liar. Told that you don't care about people. Just repeated the liar thing constantly over and over again. You're a liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. And when you're somebody that is doing the job you do because you have really intrinsic care and want and desire to try to help the world to be a better place, it does wear down on you. And I didn't think it was impacting me at the time. I just would brush it off and be like, oh, that's just same crap, different day with them. But over time, it piled up, and it wasn't until the job was over, which was about 2 years.
So it was 2 years of this kind of attention.
Yeah, like we'd have to, I think about a dozen times we had to get the police involved to physically remove them from the site. And one of the toughest parts would be with their phones. They'd record you. Every bit of the interaction they'd record, and then they'd go and edit it and put it up on their Facebook page saying, look at this job and this safety manager, blubbering his way through our discussions, and then they'd edit it to make it look like you had no idea what you were talking about. So we had to change the way we even approached that, and it was just such a battle, honestly. Fortunately, that job had a really, really good, strong team on the project, and we had each other's backs. But I know two of my closest colleagues on that job were both also very impacted by the dealings on that job.
In what way?
Burnout. I believe there's even a bit of PTSD in myself and two of them, which again, I thought only happened to war veterans. It's opened my eyes to that. I remember for a long time when in a management meeting or in the organization, it would come up and we'd talk about unions, and that particular union would come up, I would immediately feel tense, angry, frustrated. And I remember a manager of mine saying one time, Grant, you got to take the emotion out of it. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know how. And it was then that I really realized the impact and the longevity of that impact that it had on me. And it was just the biggest thing for me is that it wasn't just. It wasn't fair. They weren't there to look after their members. They were there to look after themselves. And that was what I had the hardest time with. And they did it in the wrong way. They didn't come.
When you say look after themselves, what would they benefit? How would they benefit from that behaviour?
Have you watched the news lately?
I guess I'm asking for the audience.
Yeah, look, they benefit from that behavior because it's standover tactics. I mean, it goes back to the mob.
But what do they win? Do they get money?
More members. It's all about members and how many members that they have and how many more they could get, to the point where they would come into our inductions and ask for membership cards from people being inducted. Mindful again, this was not their side. The agreement was not with them. And there was nobody to stop. We'd try to stop them, but there was literally no regulator or organization to call in to say, hey, this is illegal what they're doing. They shouldn't be kicking people off our job. You know, people that are coming to try to go to work that weren't allowed to go to work because they didn't hold the right card. Like, it was just insane to me that was allowed to go on. And the other toughest part was that there was nobody to call to say, help us. You know, you would call the regulator and they didn't want any involvement in it. They would go and literally wait in our project office until the union be gone, CFME be gone. Then they would come out to site. And a couple times I would be in such a bad place at the time they got there. I would be almost inconsolable when I'd be talking to them, because I'd be pissed that, why did you sit in the office? Why didn't you come out and help us?
Yeah.
You knew what was happening out here. And same with police. I mean, the police were trying to do the best they could, but they had no idea the background, the complexity of the situation. They just saw people angry at each other, and one side have their cameras out filming everything and filming them, which would often be pretty confrontational to the police as well. So yeah, it left us on an island of not having anyone to call to say this should not be happening. This is the wrong way for it to be happening. I mean, the AWU, who we had the agreement with, they were brilliant to work with. They would come out to site, and if they had any sort of safety concern, we would all consult. Their health and safety reps would be there. We would go through. We'd ensure that we fixed up whatever that concern was. And that's the way it should work. I mean,
collaboration.
Absolutely. But there was never once over those 2 years any intention by.
What years were they, Grant?
So that was 2019 to 2021.
Right. Have things changed in your view since then in terms of being more protected? No. I think it's gotten quieter because of everything going on with the CFME being put under administration and the administrator, and a lot's coming out obviously now about the depths of the corruption. But some of those behaviors are still well and truly there at the moment. I do believe the administrator is trying to make every effort possible to curb that. But I mean, it's so ingrained in the culture of that particular union. I don't know how that's going to change. How does some of your work now underpin those behaviours by way of influence?
Well, one example is talking about it right now. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues, you know what, it's for their own livelihoods, and I understand. A lot of people won't speak up about it, won't even utter the words because of the concern and the level of fear around it. And I've been asked a few times about if it concerns me, and yeah, it does. But I feel that it's it needs to be spoken about. And that's part of the reason I do it. And I spoke with the ABC about 6 months ago on the subject, was because I felt more awareness needed to be made about these behaviors and the damage that they cause. And the industry already has a lot of challenges when it comes to, the very large, mostly male population of the industry. There's already a lot of behavioral challenges that we're trying to curb. We don't need the bullying. We don't need the aggression on our side as well, brought in from this third party. So it's about creating environments where people can be themselves, can bring themselves to work and do their jobs, do them well. There's some incredible people in the construction industry and the infrastructure construction industry. I mean, some of the engineers and some of the minds that are in this industry, it's just incredible. And they should be able to bring themselves to work, do their job, and go home to their families.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's one of our probably the second largest sector in Australia, aside from transport and logistics. And quite often we're talking about it's the sector that damages people. Construction's shit, therefore we need to fix construction. And then when you just talk about, a mostly male workspace, and you look at, say, construction and transport and logistics, there's so much unskilled labour in those sectors. And then if we look at the state of men and boys and how boys are raised, even your situation where a lot of boys who are, say, acting out at school, or their families have broken down, dad's not present anymore for all the reasons that I'm not going to go into, are all of a sudden pushed into trades because it's easier to get them out of education and just get them into a trade that might sort them out. So it's the kind of people that are coming into the sector that are already challenged that are filling up this sector. So what you've just described, with another whole element coming in that's so disruptive and damaging, these people are scared because that's the only thing they know. And they don't have other choices in life. They can't choose to go and get another career or even another job in many cases because of that confidence. Or potentially people who've just come to Australia for work have absolutely no infrastructure around themselves either, so therefore have to comply with these tactics. And it's a vicious cycle. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it's not a sector that needs to be fixed. It's who's coming into it and how we prepare. And you mentioned it before, how we prepare people coming in for support. So now we're looking at mentally healthy workplaces and looking at changing policies or even governance in workplaces around OH&S, WHS, wherever you come from in Australia. How do we actually protect the human condition in any form, as opposed to this homogenous blobby, especially with men, they're all the same, whereas they're not. They come from all different. Well, diversity is something that we're talking about in many other industries and sectors, but not so much. I think we're talking about it in some of the more high-risk, heavy industry sectors.
For me, it's really about, again, that being intentional about setting up the organizations or the projects with the tools and the behaviors needed to create that mentally healthy environment. If you look at like the new legislation, which is going to be introduced here to Victoria in December, which is the psychosocial hazards framework. If you look at most of those psychosocial hazards, a lot of those can be reduced through the right leadership behaviors and creating the right work environment. For example, role clarity, like you spoke about earlier, how change is managed. If you're in a work environment where you can easily speak up when you're in the gray about something or don't fully understand what exactly they're trying to convey, if you can speak up and have that issue resolved just through communication, how brilliant is that? Unfortunately, what we see, though, is a lot of different areas that where it's just not clear on setting up that right environment, and it's not an environment where people feel safe to speak up, and so they quietly go along about their business, and those things, like I said, they start to start to stack up, and eventually there's a breaking point. And if, the individual is already maybe in their own personal life at a breaking point and bringing themselves to work, and it's a poor environment as well, then it just doubles down. And
that's right. But a work environment can have the opposite effect on a human being that it's challenged externally to come to a place that is safe and secure, that makes sense, can make all of the difference to a human being. And I think we don't have to get emotionally involved in everyone's lives. That's not what this is about. It's not that we all have to become amateur psychologists or counselors. It's about doing the right thing and putting things in place like structure. And I was at a client the other day who had an employee who was not prospering very well. So the assumption was something that was happening to this person outside of work. And when I sat confidentially with the person, it was clearly, there were things happening externally, but the internal stuff was really affecting this person. So when I asked this person about, show me your job description, I don't have one. Okay. So you probably need to speak to your manager about that. So let's go through, say, have you got, show me where your company policies are. Where's your code of conduct? Where's your employee handbook? Where's that? I don't know. So no process at all in this workplace. And it was viewed as something that we don't really need to do that, because we're not that kind of workplace that needs it. We're very family oriented. We take care of our own. Not at all. So this person, suicidal at the time. And that's how quickly a human being who is discombobulated, doesn't understand what their purpose is internally, it can have dire outcomes. And I cannot emphasize that enough.
Absolutely. And you made a perfect point earlier about you don't need to be a psychologist or a mental health expert to understand this stuff. It really isn't that complex. And a lot of the work I do now is trying to, raise that awareness that it's not that complex. It's about creating a caring environment and looking after people. Like it's not that hard, but unfortunately, for some, it is quite hard to leave some of those behaviors behind. And I think if people realize the impact, either positive or negative, that they can have on individuals they work with, if they'd really take time to realize that impact, I think we'd see a lot more positive. And it's not difficult. Anyone who's there going, oh, this sounds so hard, it's so difficult, either go to the WorkSafe website where there are so many templates. Everything's written for you. All you need to do is put your stamp on it. You literally don't have to do anything. Or you could even go and see Grant at Alchimie. That's probably a good idea, where he can come in as a consultant into your workplace. I'm not selling this for you at all, but you can take the lead on that. Just call 1-800.
But no, seriously, that's the work that you do alongside your work in wellness and infrastructure, which I'm pretty sure you don't get paid to do.
No. Wellness, no.
Do you know what? Just before I came on the show, I've got these pop screens, and sorry, Mike, I can't use one on this mic today. And my cousin was dropping off my dog, who's been on holidays, and she said, oh, what are they? And I told her, and she said, oh, so the radio station pays for those. I went, no. I said, in men's health and in community work, that comes out of raebonney.com.au, because we don't get paid to do this work. And not that we want to get paid for this work, because it's important. It's about evolution and, paving a way for our kids, that sort of stuff.
And it gives, I'm sure you would agree, it gives me a lot more than monetary value doing it. I mean, to see the volunteers that we have. So we've got a volunteer base at Wellness and Infrastructure, a bit over 60 individuals now, which they're all from industry. So it's all people volunteering from industry for the betterment of industry. Seeing them be involved in some of the work they've done. I mean, that gala you talked about earlier with the Wellness and Infrastructure Awards, I was part of the idea creation 5 years ago, but I cannot take any credit for that night. That was 4 or 5 of our volunteers who absolutely put blood, sweat, and tears into that night and made it an extraordinary one. So seeing that for me is so rewarding and just such a beautiful thing to, I guess just see the positive and the positive intent that it's in people. I mean, just is incredible.
Do you know what my favourite part of the night was? It was Michael Fish when he received his award. And anyone who's listening, you had to be there. But where is Michael from?
He's a superintendent with BMD Construction.
That's right. And the most humble recognition by him for himself for this award, but I think it touched everyone in the room. Just the way he didn't even realise what he was doing was making such an impact. It was just because he's a good person doing good stuff. And he's the perfect role model, I think, for almost everyone, is that you don't have to have all the bells and whistles and you don't have to have a platform to stand on. Just go to work, do good shit at work, and that will affect people in a really good way.
Absolutely. He is an absolute champion, and his speech was incredible. I think it started off with, "Oh, gee whiz." Yeah, loved it. Something
about his socks as well. Yeah. It was beautiful. And I wrote to him later and said, wow, that was something else. And again, he was very humble about that as well. But, that's all very inspiring when the more people we can get in a room, the more we can influence people about this is not a have to do thing. It's just part of how we exist as human beings, because you go into somebody's home and there's the care and there's the love and there's the, commitment to just natural safety. Most homes are just naturally safety. We've got all the safety gadgets. You bring a new baby in at home and it's, you've got things in wall sockets and you've got no trip. You've got all this stuff happening at home. Just do that.
Yeah.
In the workplace.
Yeah, I have all that at home right now and gives me the shits. It does. Go to open a drawer and I forget it's got the baby lock on it. But for me, I think life's too short. Life is far too short to hate it. Or to be miserable in it. And if work is creating that, it's just such a wrong thing. It's too short to be impacted negatively by work. Unfortunately, we have to do it. It's part of what we have to do to get by in life, but it shouldn't be something that we've got to carry with us and carry a burden from it or let it impact us in our lives when we're away from it.
Well, I think you mentioned the December 1 psychosocial hazards framework that's a bit changed and some new things have come into that. And again, it's just really, really simple. Don't do harm to other people anywhere.
Absolutely.
Including the workplace. So it's not this complex thing. It's like the new things that have come in, like consultation. Why wouldn't you bloody consult your employees about change? Hey, we're getting a new managing director. Hey, we're moving to another site. Quite often these things are never spoken to about with employees, and it just happens. And how discombobulating to somebody who has social anxiety, who has transition issues, who have all these hidden things that they keep to themselves through fear of disclosure. That's all going on for people. So consultation can wipe out a whole lot of stress for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing I'm trying to really get across is to see the opportunity that's coming with them, with the new legislation, that, instead of seeing it as frightening, we're going to find ourselves out of compliance with the regulator, see it as an opportunity, because if you can create that work environment, through implementing, the different risk and strategies around, reducing that risk associated with psychosocial hazards, you can create a work environment that is going to be not only healthy for your employees and people, but also more productive. I mean, Rae has talked about it already, that there's a lot of proof in the pudding around mentally healthy workplaces having a very large productive output and return on investment. So my advice would be go all in. Ensure that you comply with them, because you're going to see more than just healthy people as an outcome of doing that.
Yep. If you don't give a shit about people, give a shit about your bottom line.
Boom.
Can you believe it's time? Well, we missed the last break as promised, but let's have one before we wrap the show. So it's time for another very special guest song request, Grant, which I know you've been really looking forward to. I can't even remember what's coming up next. So your clue is it's going to happen briefly when we go to this song break. And it could have to do with the title.
Gone Away.
Yep.
Oh.
I made that really easy for you, didn't I? Is this the crying song?
Oh, this one takes me places, that's for sure.
Look, my day's not complete until a man's cried, so I'm always just sort of, I haven't made anyone cry yet today. My son was still in bed when I left home, so what does this song mean for you?
Like everyone listening, I've lost some very important people in my life over the years, and this song just really makes me reflect on those that I've lost. And recently I lost someone that I was quite close to about a year ago in a workplace accident, actually. And I don't know, this song just really attaches itself to him.
Wow. That's very apt, isn't it, for this show today. So did you want to give a shout out to your friend?
Yeah, his name was Chris Sloss. Yeah, and he was killed in an accident on a mine site up in Queensland when a crane overturned and he was crushed.
Wow. Preventable.
Yeah. Preventable.
As many as I remember, people, 96% of workplace deaths here in Australia are men. Almost all of them preventable. We've got to get better. So without further ado, he's Gone Away. It's the alternative. Gone Away by The Offspring. When we come back, we will wrap the show, and until then, don't go away. You're listening to 94.1 FM, 3WBC. Welcome back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and you're with Rae Bonney on What Does It Feel Like Being You Today? And what does it feel like being you today, Grant Fuller?
I feel extraordinarily lucky in life, to be honest. I've got two beautiful boys. I've got a beautiful wife, and I've got a nice little house, in the southeast suburbs, close-ish to the beach, and it's a life that is so far removed from
ranch
life in Big Timber, Montana. But it's such a beautiful life, and sometimes like anyone, you let everything external kind of cloud how beautiful life really is. But I'm very fortunate to be where I am and with the people that I love. So yeah, it's good being Grant Fuller today.
Well, just even moving through your story today and, all of the different kinds of environments that you've taken yourself into and the experience that you've gathered and collected. I think your children are so lucky to have a dad who, and probably a mum as well, who has so much to share with them that will shape and inform their life of adventure.
Yeah, I remember when it first dawned on me that my kids would be growing up in a city. It took me a long time to come to grips with that, because I always pictured having this family and a farm and being out in the country somewhere. And it's going to be a learning experience for me, to raise the two boys and around a city. I think I was just telling you, I hadn't lived in a town with a stoplight in it until I moved to Australia in 2012 and moved to Brisbane. So it's definitely. You
do remember to stop, don't you?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, you drive into the big smoke, into the city. So, but, no, it's going to be, an experience for me raising two boys in a much different environment than I was raised in.
But the beautiful thing about your life that you've created is that you have choices and you have options. So this isn't the end by the sounds of it for you, because it never is. So who knows, down the track, the country's just up the road in Victoria.
Absolutely.
It's not that far away. In fact, speaking of country, being International Men's Day on Wednesday, the 19th of November, I'm off to Horsham, which is a lovely, beautiful town in the northwest Victoria, and I spent some time there in September delivering men's health sessions, many men's health sessions actually, to all of the Horsham Rural City Council. And it was so impactful, really, really impactful to, have this audience who, the gratitude for listening to a different side of men's health, which is all very proactive and not shaming and blaming and directive, telling men what to do, but rather just giving a really good picture of what it might look like, especially around some of the different lenses we can look through on men's health, because unfortunately in Horsham, they lose at least one man to suicide every month. That is a lot. And you mentioned that before about where you grew up. You know people's pets' names. You know everything about them. It's very, very similar up there. So every man that dies, and one died just a couple of weeks ago, who's, very young and very well known, leaves massive, massive hole in the community. So I'm going up there on Wednesday, and at the Horsham Showgrounds, they've got this big old shed, like it's massive, in this pavilion. And so it's all booked out. And, so I get to do the keynote there, for, a big event, and, Check Engine Light Night, it's called. So they're going to have a bunch of cars there and bikes and food, and all the families welcome. So anyone who's travelling through Horsham, who's in Horsham, do come along on the 19th, on Wednesday the 19th. It's at 6:00 at the Horsham Showgrounds, and I'm really excited. I love nothing more than getting on a stage and talking about men.
It's brilliant.
And making better lives for them as well, especially how we're raising boys. I'm so glad that your boys have got a dad like you, because unfortunately, we live in a time at the moment where evolution is still struggling to get through to the next point of how we raise children and how we cope with families that don't often stay together. And how that impacts children at the moment is probably not that great, especially when boys and girls are being separated from their fathers through alienation or other situations that, again, are very, very preventable. It's so much more that can be done. In terms of today, if any of the themes and topics discussed have brought up uncomfortable feelings for you, you might have come from Montana, or been on a fishing boat, or been up close with the CFMEU. That's how you say, isn't it? Sometimes I get the letters around the wrong way. Please remember, help is always available. Not always in the way that you want it, but here are a few ideas. In Australia, Lifeline, the number there is 131114. Pick up the phone, dial, and if you don't connect with the person that you're speaking to, you don't really get a vibe, hang up, try again. Suicide callback service, 1300 659 467. And if you're not sure where to start or what help you might need, consider calling Head to Health on 1-800-595-212 or visiting headtohealth.gov.au. It's a national free service connecting you with the right mental health support, whether that's online tools, phone chats, or face-to-face care. They list more than 700 digital programs, apps, forums, phone and email services, and a network of walk-in centres, all publicly funded and available to everyone in Australia, including adults, young people, older adults, families and carers. It doesn't replace specialist treatment, but it's an excellent place to begin. No referrals needed there either, so it's very accessible. That's it. That is absolutely. Are you familiar with that site?
No.
It's amazing. No. There's something on there for everyone.
Yeah, right. I'll have to start promoting that one.
Do.
Absolutely.
Speaking of promotion, stay tuned, because next up on 3WBC is A Very Lazy Sunday Afternoon with Paula Hogg, and her tunes are guaranteed to make you feel good and relaxed in the lead up to the next week. And I'm going to be returning on the 18th of January. I'm taking December off because my son George is coming home from London. And the moment he gets off the plane, I don't think I really want to be out of sight of him until he goes back again at the beginning of January. So So it's very exciting. But when I do come back, on about the 18th of January, I think, I'll be joined by Shay Layton from the Tough Guy Book Club. It's a brilliant, slightly renegade outfit that started in Sydney and now hosts groups in pubs and public spaces around Australia, getting men together to read books, connect deeply and show that being a tough guy and being thoughtful don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's really cool. I've known Shay for some time. We worked together on the board of the Australian Men's Health Forum. I was on that board for 8 years until this year when I resigned. And, he's on the board there now, and he's doing great work. My work now sits more on global action on men's health. So we're, an organisation who does amazing work in focusing on policy making for men and boys around the world, which it's the only way I feel that we can get really, really good systemic, sustainable change is by affecting policy, because there isn't a lot of policy that is just dedicated to better lives for men and boys, whatever that might be.
Aiming for the top. Absolutely.
Always just keep going. And, I'm very lucky that, from the moment I can remember, I've had this very deep fascination for people. And then growing up in the time that I did where, saw so much male disposability through, mining, the Vietnam War, lots of occupations where men were just sent. And, just as, move through life, you realize that these generations of men are still in workplaces at the moment, and not all of them had choices about their occupations or choices about their lives. And I'm just really so empathic about that, and just want to create space for men like that to tell their stories, like you're telling your story today, to inspire younger generations and also give permission for people who might have experienced something similar, that it's okay, and the world is there and there are places that we can go for support.
Yeah. It's about not believing what others say you may be. For me, with that getting stuck, it makes me reflect back, to being told that, or feeling that young Grant will just remain and be what everyone else believes I'll be. You don't have to be that. You could be whoever you want to be, and it's never too late to start over, or to change tact, or try something new. It's never too late to do it. You just got to do it.
Well, that's not so easy for some people, though, is it?
No. There's always going to be different complexities that will obviously come into play, but part of me has that idea of the will. Where there's a will, there's a way to overcome those challenges. That being said, that I can't speak for everyone when I say that.
Well, I guess we're all built differently, aren't we? And understanding, in my private practice, I work with all kinds of men and boys, and some of them I've been very, very fortunate to have been on that trajectory, especially with the younger boys, where it looks like everyone's just given up on them, really. And so fortunate that they've had somebody in their life that's put them towards a different kind of support. In fact, I've got one, I work with he's a man now because he just turned 18, but I've been working with him for a number of years, and I had tears in my eyes the other day sitting with him. He funds himself now to come and see me, and he books his appointments. He makes sure he sees me every second week. And where he is now in life, where he could have been probably in jail.
Yeah.
But he's done that for himself just because, similar to you, does want a different life, but really didn't have a lot of support around him to encourage him, because he was labelled as the bad kid. And that's still all he knows about himself. He just has this inner drive that keeps on propelling him forward to better things. But probably for the rest of his life will have that self-stigma attached that he's just the bad kid.
Yeah, no doubt. You've really made me reflect now on what I said with that. My wife and I did foster care for about 5 years, where we did emergency and respite care, and some of the situations we focused on teens to be honest, with the emergency and the respite, because there's a real lack of carers for that cohort. And some of the emergency care that we provided, it just was so tragic. The situations and, yeah, the early lives that these adolescents had, it would be very tough to say that to them, that, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. It's like, well, yeah, sure, easy enough for you to say, but there's a lot more challenges in my life than you understand. So, yeah, I think you asked me about if I think there's an element of luck, and to a certain degree in that context, I think there is an element of luck in my life, as well as a bit of determination and, yeah, maybe even a bit of stupidity here and there mixed in.
Well, that's right. But how we're born, you know, we're born with, even though we're made in the same sort of blobby flesh suit as people, you know, whatever it is that goes on for us, we do have different drivers and different motivations and see the world through different lenses. And, you know, even for the mental health sector, sometimes I look at it with a bit of a raised eyebrow, and this is no disrespect to anyone of a higher stature who talks about their mental health openly, especially in the media. But, you know, for your AFL footballer who does have support and infrastructure, well, formal support and infrastructure around them, really is not relatable to your guy in Frankston that's got 5 kids and a nice addiction, who finds it really hard just to get through a day. And many would just blame that person and say, well, you have a choice. You don't have to do that. But that's when we look through generations and generations of misfortune or whatever it might be. Some people, it's just really effing hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we've got to get better at I think lived experience is amazing. I think it really helps inform, and it gives people permission to think and feel that I'm not the only person. I'm not alone here. But we certainly do need to have a look at our systems and our structures of support to get closer to, you know, mental health isn't a generic thing that can just, let's go and fundraise to get more money in the bank for mental health. That's not really helping.
Yeah.
Understanding what affects people is. So to your point about, you know, your mission around workplace or infrastructure and construction, that's a really huge space where you can make lots of change around what makes people feel connected, wanted, loved, cared for, and therefore have some sense of self-respect that they want to live.
Yeah, and I mean, the dream is that the ripple effects go beyond just the workplace, and if you can create that sort of environment that some take that home then and have that same care in their homes that may not have been there before. I mean, I've had that come back maybe twice now since I've kind of started this mission where somebody's came back and said, look, not only am I now living this belief or this way of looking after myself and colleagues at work, I actually have taken it home and I've started to do the same thing. And that is huge to hear that it's not only had an impact on them individually, but a wider impact on their family in a positive way. What more could you want?
That's right, because then that's people, you know, children are seeing that, and then that's good role modeling. I actually had a situation earlier this year, and I was speaking at the Workplace Health and Safety Show, which is an amazing event of people getting together and not talking about going and doing safety, but how and why, you know, and why it should just become part of life. And I was talking on stage, and a woman came to me and she said, how do I get this man to go and get support? And I said, you don't. She said, why? I said, because that's what you want. Listen to what you just said. How do I get that man to get support? So what's going on for you that you need him to get support? Well, he just should. I said, listen to yourself again. At what stage did you ask that man that you're talking about what he needs? But he just needs to get help. So we had to keep on going back to this woman and go, that's about you. So we eventually got to the point that we discussed, that perhaps asking the question about why that man might be feeling like he is, what has he tried in the past before, what could feel good for him in the future, really unpacking that. Anyway, she emailed me a week or so later and said, I went home to my husband, who's got a friend who he's worried about, and I told him this. And she said, my husband he's not a big talker. He doesn't get on the phone to anyone, but he rang his friend and went through this, through a different lens and said, oh my gosh, his friend was in a really bad way. And long story short, she'd made a change in her life that impacted her husband, that then impacted a friend. Those 3 people get impacted.
How rewarding is that?
Well, you just realize how easy it is. It's not that I'm never right. Like, I love what I do for a living because every single day I know more than I did yesterday. Sitting with you this morning, I know a lot more than I did yesterday. So when I look back on some of the things that either are recorded, I can feel kind of embarrassed to go, oh gosh, what was I thinking? But I'm also understanding and respecting in myself that it's evolving and we can't be right. As long as we're open to change, then I think we're okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the growth journey in life and could not agree with you more that every day, if you're open to receiving it, you do grow and you do learn. And hopefully, at least for myself, you grow better each day as well.
Can I just interject very quickly? I had just received a text message from my daughter Rose, and she is with my granddaughter Evelyn, and they're listening in right now. So I would love to say, hello, Evelyn. It is Ra on the radio, and I am thinking about you. And all the work that Grant and I are talking about today is that designed to help you have a better life, however you get through it. So thank you for listening in, Evelyn and Rose. I love you. I love you both. I love giving you a bit of a shout out on the radio.
Absolutely. That would have made her day.
Probably, yes. Tomorrow is Evelyn and Ra Fun Day. So every Monday I do take the day to take Evelyn on adventures. So yeah, every Monday we have some very, very interesting adventures that hopefully that she will carry her through, into her next stages of life through whatever we're doing. Usually involves lots of sugar.
Monday's a good day for adventures. Be less people for the parks and everything else. Yeah.
Well, yes, but a lot of things are shut as well. But at the end of the day, we pick up Uncle Gory, who's my son Rory. We pick up Uncle Gory from school and we go and we always get a donut. And now that donut's turned into a donut and an ice cream. So by the time we take Evelyn back to Rose, she's pretty hyped up on sugar.
I made myself pretty proud this morning. I said no to the donut. I saw a donut. I went past a Donut King and got a coffee, and I didn't get the donut. So I was pretty happy with myself.
So is that a thing for you, is it? Donuts?
Well, who can say no to donuts?
So not a Daniel's donut?
No. Oh. I don't need all the fancy stuff on there. Just a normal, like, glazed or cinnamon sugar donut. Yeah. I don't like any of the stuff overdone. I find that a lot with the American food joints that they open up down here. They always try to go way above and beyond with the food, and it's like, no, just keep it simple.
Yeah, true.
Just put a couple pickles on a cheeseburger. Happy.
Well, since I gave up alcohol almost 3 years ago, I thought I hated anything with sugar in it. Cakes, donuts, never had any of it. I didn't realize how much sugar was in wine. So now I cannot be around it. If you put an entire cake in my fridge, it'd be guaranteed gone by the next day.
I'd leave the cake alone, but the ice cream would be gone. Ice cream is my crux, my kryptonite.
So you do have some foibles.
Oh yeah. No, nobody's perfect, and that doesn't exclude me.
Well, that certainly does make the world go around, doesn't it? So Paula will be arriving in the studio soon. What's next for you in life?
Next for me in life is, well, when it comes professionally, to continue to see wellness and infrastructure grow and continue to create awareness around the poor mental health of the infrastructure industry, but also raise awareness about what's being done about it. The different initiatives and programs and projects that are being undertaken to really curb those rates of depression and anxiety and burnout.
Can you give an example of just one of those?
We're just getting ready actually to launch a new tool that we designed and developed thanks to some funding that was provided by McConnell Dow, which is a contractor within industry. They provide us funding in order to get the tool off the ground, which is a cloud-based psychosocial analysis tool, or psychosocial audit tool for short. It's called PAT, and it's been developed in order to help projects be able to do a gap analysis on how well they're managing their various psychosocial hazards and the risks of. So it's very step-by-step, self-explanatory. You don't have to be an expert in it to understand where your highest risks might lie, looking at the various procedures you have to manage those risks. So it identifies the gaps. And we created that because different projects have different risk profiles.
Yep.
When it comes to that psychosocial risk. And so we wanted to create a tool where it would be specific to be able to use for the different project and the different profile of that project. And you can easily have a snapshot of how well you're managing it. So we're going to have a free tool for all of industry. And then there's a paid subscription if you want to keep your data after you've undertaken the audit. You'll be able to keep your data in this cloud and be able to benchmark how well you're managing your risk, if you're doing it on a 6 monthly basis, a quarterly basis. So where can people, when will that be launched? That's going to be launched early in the new year. You can find more information about it on our website, which if you just do a quick search, Google search of wellness and infrastructure, it will come up, with the website, wellnessy at, .org.
.org. Just look up wellness infrastructure and you'll find it. I've Googled it about 3,000 times in the last week. So, now for your final song, Grant, here's a clue. In fact, you gave 4 songs and we're only going to play 3. So here's your clue. 1 swear word.
Oh, working. Working Class Hero by John Lennon.
Is this the one that makes you cry?
Oh, this one just takes me on an absolute journey. No, you had, there was a couple tears with the last song. Oh. It was welling up. Yeah. I could feel it. But no, this song just, it goes to the primal in me about proving them all wrong, doing it differently, and making your life yours, I guess. It's just, John Lennon's incredible. So,
has anyone ever in your mom or somebody turned around and said to you, wow, I had no idea that you would accomplish so much?
Yep. And then it's usually followed up with, but why did you have to move all the way to Australia?
Has your mum been here?
Yeah. We've brought her down a few times.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Does she like it?
Yeah, she loves it. She loves it. She actually almost got stuck here for the entire pandemic. We had to drive her up to Sydney to catch one of the last flights out of Sydney because they'd canceled all flights out of Melbourne.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of on the fence, like, oh, this might be all right. But yeah, look, the better half was not all right with having the mother-in-law stuck here for the pandemic. So we got her to Sydney and got her out in time. But we bring her down almost every year for a couple weeks or a few weeks.
Oh, so. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great part of life, isn't it? We can travel.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me today. Just everything you've shared, not just about yourself, but about what you do, is just so invaluable. And, I understand a lot of the work that you do is unsung, and there's so much work and hours, and your team at Wellness and Infrastructure, those volunteers that you spoke about before, bringing all of that together is just, I don't know, there's just no words for it. But thank you for coming today and for everything that you do.
Thanks, Rae. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I've really enjoyed today. So,
what's not to enjoy? You're on radio, really. Now, I see Paula has arrived in Studio 1. So, without further ado, take care, everybody. I will be back in January. And remember, be kind, be caring, and don't be an arsehole because it kills people.